Welcome back. I am joined on set by Mayor Jeff Mulligan, and we are talking about next year's city budget. So in the budget, there were a couple things that came up that maybe we could break down so it's more understandable. A new initiative in the budget is the capital project levy. What is that exactly?
Well, what it does is it really becomes our down payment on capital projects. So oftentimes we'll say a highway project. They'll say 75% funded by the provincial government, 25% by the city. Well, it'll be a project to erect a building. It'll say 80% the government, 20% is the city's responsibility. Well, that 20 or that 25 or that 33%, we have to have that money ready to go. We have to have that denoted for capital projects. And so if we have $110 million worth of capital projects this year, it's likely that we're going to be asked for some number to achieve those in the range of $20 or $30 million to be the city's contribution. We don't have that kind of money set aside, and we certainly don't want to miss the opportunity to build great projects and great infrastructure. So what this is creating a fund that will allow us to have our down payment ready when the time comes.
And how many years would this go for, this plan?
Well, what we're thinking is 5 years to create an equilibrium, and then every year's budget thereafter would just deal with the new capital projects that are contemplated.
And there wasn't, like when you came in, there was no reserve kind of set aside for these projects?
You know, there was a reserve system. Part of it didn't reconcile to the numbers that I thought it would be. And with the growth we've had, the city did a wonderful job of keeping its costs low and its taxes low. What it didn't do necessarily is then build up those reserves that we need for those projects.
Do you have some projects lined up in mind?
Well, I mean, next year we have some exciting ones. The kids' play park, aquatic play park is a big one. The Infrastructure Services Ops Center, which is another fancy word for a public workshop.
Okay.
Our public workshop's over 30 years old. You wouldn't work in it, I wouldn't work in it. I certainly can't ask our top professionals and technicians to work in there. We need to build them a bright, shiny new building that allows them to excel and deliver great service. So that's $40 million.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So part of it's going to come from the government, and then the city has to provide some money as well. And that's what that reserve is for.
We have regular grant programs that come from the government. Some of that will be earmarked and moved into those projects, and the rest the city has to either borrow or we have to have the money ready to go.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was the seamless delivery levy for education. What is that?
Well, I couldn't be more proud of this. When I was elected and came to the city, the relationship between the two school systems and the City of Lloydminster was weak. It was strained. The City of Lloydminster was standing back saying it was a provincial matter and letting the schools fend for themselves to try to get equitable funding. The bottom line is that if you live in Lloydminster, your kids are going to get the best of both world education. And that's what I'm most proud of. We met with Minister Hardpower. We did an education summit at my request. And at the end of that, she allowed us in our charter to say, if you would do this in Unity or you would do this in Lacombe, and it wouldn't be funded right across. So let's take an easy example, driver training. Okay. Saskatchewan funds driver training for students in high school. Alberta does not. Yet 66 to 75% of our students that are taking driver training are domiciled in Alberta.
Yeah.
So we provide that to students in Lloydminster, irrespective of whether they're Alberta or Saskatchewan. But our school has to take that money from a budget somewhere else and take it out of another pocket. What I'm saying is, no, we shouldn't do that. If we're going to deliver all the Saskatchewan programming to Alberta students and it's not funded, then we'll help you fund that. And so the seamless delivery just basically says that education in Lloydminster will be delivered in a seamless way so that every student will get the best that was offered or funded by either province in their curriculum here in Lloydminster.
Well, that seems like a great idea.
I think that's a special benefit.
Yeah. And you must be getting very positive feedback from that.
Yeah, I mean, it does incur a small tax burden, but that tax burden is rather small in relation to the benefits that our students will accrue and the fact that we now have one more thing in our brand that we can say, look at our education system. We have great people, great teachers doing great things in our school system. Let's not encumber them with hurdles like, well, we don't fund this because we're Alberta or we don't fund this. That's where I said we'll step in as a city and we'll pick up some of that.
Because we definitely have that special between the Alberta and Saskatchewan side.
Absolutely. And this was well received by the school systems. We have a great partnership with our key stakeholders like the school systems. And hey, we're going to have 3 schools all being built at the same time here in the next year. So when you have that kind of growth and you have that kind of energy around the school systems, we have a very solid education system on both fronts. And in fact, now we've had a 3rd school system in the French system as well. So we're delighted with the education in Lloydminster. We think it's a key part of our brand.
Well, that's a very good thing. Another thing I wanted to touch on was the changes to the property tax prepayment discounts. Now, what went into that decision?
Well, I'm a banker by trade and a retired banker. And when I see interest rates that would be 8% that the city would be paying for that money to be prepaid, I said, what is this index to? And so they set a rate of 4% for prepayment. And that's 4% for 6 months of use of the money. If you take that out over a year, that's an 8% premium. Well, who wouldn't give you a prepayment and get 8% return on their money?
Yeah.
But that means your tax dollars, last year, the amount that we that we gave away in prepayment discounts was the same as what we raised taxes by. Talk about kicking yourself in the butt. So it should be indexed to current interest rates. Current interest rates and the return you can get on a term deposit is not 8%. I said, let's make sure we give people an opportunity to receive benefit. So now at 2.5% equates to 5% on a per annum basis. That's still a really good return for people to prepay and gives us the cash flow we need for the first part of the year.
Perfect. And what about the future? Looking ahead for our city, what do you see?
Well, you know, we have a very bright future. We just did a staff planning session where the theme was the future's so bright you got to wear shades. We have record growth. We have industry. We're creating jobs. In fact, our biggest, most difficult thing is making sure we have enough people to fill all those jobs.
Oh, for sure.
But we have a great environment for businesses. We were rated one of the top 2 places in the country for entrepreneurs. We've got a new business incubator starting in our community. Economic development's humming on all cycles. The city is firing on all cylinders. And now we just got to make sure we have the social supports for everyone and that everyone is well served in our community.
Well, I want to thank you very much for being with us today. And stay tuned. We have your regional wrap-up coming up next.